Zoom in. And then the third deepest layer that we talked about last time is really the, well, if we're going to use something and there's, those original ways of organizing the swim lanes. If we have that, where do we have it here? I really should just have little links. I wish I'd had a quick way to zoom around. It's getting a little bit big to navigate every day. But yeah, the third level is really this view of arranging the swim lanes to have the technical stuff here. And that should be the deepest layer. So in other words, I see these three views of event modeling as really how deep do you want to go? And I think it can support all of them. I think we can zoom out from an event model to have something that works in the boardroom. And we have a top-down approach to our business, saying these are the problems we want to solve. Like Rick always brings us back to the real world. Some of the stuff we shouldn't be solving. Yes, exactly. And we should have leadership that understands that that's important. So does that make sense to everyone? I wanted to really get that out there and kind of do a brain dump on you, because I think it's pivotal. I think this is going to be one of the most important things that move us forward in the new year with the next chapter of event modeling. We have traditional systems, and event-driven systems are explainable in event modeling. We have the technical details we can dive into if we need, like we did with the template, the HTML template. Now we have a level at the top where we can say this is at the business decision level. This is owners, CEOs, directors that need to pivot companies, that need to make sure that the companies are competitive, that they have full awareness of where the market is moving around them, yet they can tie it to real work without requiring a ton of Chinese telephone or broken telephone or whatever you call it to communicate that message and inform people of how and when those things are going to be done. And that is done by the slices here, where we start to say, these are the ones we're going to work on right now to get V1 out. And why are we working on that? Let's zoom back out and take a look at our competitive landscape as to why we need to answer something right now with a custom build so that we can be the product like Amazon had for AWS with their bookstore. We want to have that approach. I mean, we're doing that with Onode and Bobby, right? They said, hey, this event modeling thing is a Genesis idea, but we're going to move it to custom build and product in the next, few months, and hopefully with our, standard for event modeling notation, that's going to be a commodity. Everyone that's talking about orchestrating information systems is going to be looking at this giant kind of abstract syntax tree of these different levels of insight. Remember XML namespaces, right? We could have a namespace called executive level, or we could have tags saying executive view, so that these things disappear if you're zooming in, and a tool like Onode would make them disappear as you scroll the mouse wheel and go a little bit lower, and all of these things will pop up. Scroll the wheel a little bit lower and all the information stuff disappears, and we go back to that deepest level that we showed here, which is how the technologies that we use are going to take care of concurrency or any other types of things. Sorry, I'm scrolling around way too much, but
you've given me an idea, actually, right? This doesn't work for all three levels, but it works for two levels. You've got like your timeline for the CEO level, roadmap-y kind of idea, which then you have also sort of have an idea of an event model across the entire business, right? Of which you have many smaller event models. They're actually different dimensions, right? So
Hmm.
it's like you're looking at a different side of a cube.
Sort of, but I
You
think
know what I
it's.
mean?
I agree, it is a different side of a cube, but I think you also. I mean, the time is really nice to have as a dimension that's captured in there. I just see it as a deeper and deeper dive, and if you really look at a company when you first get hired, you probably just had some superficial information with some glimpses of maybe what tech they use, depending on your job that you're applying for. And you have this outside in view of what the company does, what it does for the customers. And then as you settle in, you start to figure out their workflows, what information they store. And as you settle in even more, then you see the nitty gritty details of their implementation and which products they use and how they take care, how those products give some of those capabilities to be able to store information a certain way. So I see it as you look at the lawn and it's nice and soft, and you got to see what's underneath. You peel back that layer, you got your nice soil, and you keep digging, and then you see that it's sitting on top of a clay base in your yard. And that's really why things work that way, because the clay is of a certain acidity, and that's why that plant grows that way. So I really see it as a layering of that nature to go
Yeah,
deeper. But I think what's important is that the tooling that's developed around event modeling, we can do this manually as we have been doing, and it's great. And I think that middle layer is key because we want to tie it to real information flowing through the system so that we know that our customers are getting what they want. But we can go up and down as well into these other views. And I think they are part of the same blueprint. Like we want to keep that blueprint mentality. And if I have again an overlay, if I use the analogy of having different overlays onto our blueprint of a house, maybe there's one that covers up a whole bunch of stuff, and it's an architectural aesthetics view where you cover all of the sizes of walls and the transparency into how it is, and you have just the outside look, and you just fold that over and it actually hides information so that strategically from building this house it'll have curb appeal and demand a higher price because the design is nice. So I think I'm still after the fact that the blueprint is an incredible metaphor for having a central place of collaboration. And I think it should extend really well into the sea level. And I think we were overlooking that. I think we have that opportunity. I think it's easier than saying, oh, now you need to do Wordly maps plus event modeling. No, why don't you just do a real zoomed out version of event modeling and see that you can capture some of these as maturity level, and your timeline is actually quite high now. Like the amount of years that you're including on your timeline should paint a picture of your competitive landscape. And you can have as much detail as is needed in here for the executive level. But you know what? The people that are implementing should also have that view into, why are we doing this? Who knows what town hall meetings are, right? You've been at a company with a town hall meeting so that the CEO could get up there and give you all the reasons in one go as to why the hell are we developing that thing, right? Like, why should we wait until a town hall meeting to find out about that? That's horrible. So if someone can zoom out on an event model and say, oh, cool, they have this initiative to, do this enterprise blockchain integration, and we're going to use email for now, but we're going to set ourselves up for having this as a a custom thing by the end of this year, and then it's going to be used by a lot of people as products, and by 2030 it's going to be part of this, right? So maybe just add one more year in here. Let's make sure this is something realistic, like maybe we do 2025. We can answer questions about this timeline as well, right? We
So
can say, why is that going to happen in 4 years? We can keep scrolling in and see, what those potential roadmaps are going to be. What's our 5-year plan? What's our 10-year plan as we see the market right now, and tie it to real stuff. Yes, Rick, sorry, I heard you. I just want to finish my sentence.
yeah, that's fine. So Adam, um, couple comments here. So one, you're starting to realize the struggle I have with event modeling when trying to bring in those other parties and do those other things.
Yep.
And that's and the thing is, so now the struggle and the danger, right? Like event, like sometimes you try and take a tool and you use it for something it's not designed for. It actually, it can be good, but it also can be misleading and bad, right? So this is the balance here, right? So I mean, first on the implementation detail, I'll just start, like when you have enterprise blockchain integration on your screen and it's linked to the lower level of abstraction, right? You've got it linked to a screen. I think it should be linked to user registration. It should be linked not to a screen, but to an actual swim lane. So this swim lane,
sure. Oh yeah, I agree. I agree.
So
I did that.
The way your line is drawn drawn to the thing. It should, those should map
this line. You're talking about this line, right? This long line connecting the two.
This long line that goes up to user registration screen. It actually should go to the
correct.
Okay, so that's
correct. I just wanted to attach it somewhere.
Yeah, so you attach it to the swim lane, and it makes sense because this.
And the reason I attach it to something random is because it's a different company here in this example.
Yeah, so I get it.
No real place to attach it to, Rick.
But the goal is you want to attach it. These things match to a swim lane, and this swim lane is a level. This user registration subsystem.
Maybe we'll attach it to invoices. That's actually believable.
That's fine, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. You're saying, but this, and now you say you want to. So that's fine. You want a level of abstraction. So there's a couple of things that you're struggling with that I have been looking at and seeing how to deal with event modeling and relating it to other things, right? So one is level of abstraction. One of the challenges we're having with this one is this is an example of you want to look at a higher level of abstraction. And then that other example that we were showing where you want to say that this, how do we show a lower level of abstraction and how it relates? And when we flatten it all out, it's great, right? We can see how they relate, but we're saying like, but how do we show that this is all at a different level of abstraction, right? Right, and so we've done those, the 3 layers in the implementation, like the details. We started putting those in, right, to say how to show that, but really flattens out your model. So you really want to be able to collapse that level of abstraction when it's not needed and have it disappear, right? So if you look at
so there's a number of things here, and I believe that you don't need to show everything in here, of course, but these things, like you said, should blow up to multiple lanes. So for example, this may be 2 or 3 services that we will have, and so this line could essentially link to those 3, although it's not really going to exist. This line will not exist. This is just an explanation for now, because the mechanics of it will be such that I am zooming in, and this will just expand into the 3 swim lanes that we're building.
Right.
So that's the decomposition. So this line really isn't part of the notation. I'm just using it as a helper to link the 2 things, because I can't. I don't have a dynamic event model like ONote to do this in, right? ONote will do this. So I will want to be able to use my scroll wheel and go up and down and say, holy smokes, this is amazing. I'm blowing up the whole thing to see exactly how the guys on the ground floor are implementing this. And not only that, but I actually have insight as to how far along they are, right? That's a wonderful thing to have. And so I believe that a CEO should be able to scroll in, and these things should expand, and he or she should see what the slices are that are slated, who's working on them. It should be entirely transparent, which is the equivalent of me walking as a CEO to a desk and saying, hey, what are you working on? Right? Taking a consensus of what everyone is doing there, right? And if you have like the yellow code for the vertical slice, I can quickly look and see that, oh yeah, the guys are working on this and this and this. And then, oh, they have these things slated. these are the, empty or blue or whatever code we decide for these slices for version 1 that's going to, go out in a month or so. I should have that level of transparency. And again, event modeling is about allowing that collaborative process. And I think it can go all the way up and all the way down.
Right. So let's put, there's three things, three concepts, and they are different, but they relate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one, I'll just list the three that I've categorized, right? And other people can tell me. So one, there's just multiple levels of abstraction and how to deal with that, right? That's a concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there is modeling change over time, which is another concept, right? And then there is things like the competitive landscape.
Yep.
Which is treated. Those are three distinct things.
That's right.
And you have to, at any level, any diagram, those are either all in there or represented or not. Now, you see what you put on the screen now, that you sort of lay these things over time, but really you threw a box around it and you say, at a point in time, here's my level of abstraction, right? And that's what ultimately an event model and this box all are a point in time snapshot, right? What's in this box is at this point in time, this is, enterprise blockchain is emerging, right?
Custom.
And or is custom.
Well, it's emerging, but we want to bring it to be a reality of this is what we can do as a custom.
So your goal is, you say enterprise blockchain is emerging. It's in two spots. Why do you mean that? Oh, you're trying to move it. So you're trying to move it from this to that. John, you trying to say something?
Yeah, you're conflating multiple meanings of the word time down into the same meaning, right?
Sure. What do you mean by that?
You have the event flow throughout an organization, value stream mapping, whatever you want to call it. That's one concept of time. You have the roadmap, the sequence in which you're going to implement it. That's a different concept of time.
Correct.
You have this idea of competitive landscape. I mean, that arguably maps onto roadmaps some way, but it only looks like time. It's a different sort of dimension you're playing with, right?
That's right.
You're sort of playing with the, we just need to be really careful with using the word time, that we're very clear about what we mean about the word time in the sentence you're talking about.
Right.
It's confusing as hell otherwise.
Yes, yeah. I agree with you. And I think that's kind of what's, the struggle there is how things change over time, right? Is like the, at the detail, an event model, and I think what Adam's showing here that's actually represented on the screen is not an event model. It may be an augmentation. He wants to say there's some higher level context that I want to clearly relate to my event model. So I don't think.
Well, I'm going to argue with you on one thing though, there, Rick, because I think this model can actually get real data in there, and the fact that we have something substantial as a goal to say, Walmart checkout screen use Lightning Network to pay. I
think you're arguing. I didn't say you can't. That's a different conversation. Okay. I'm saying what I see on the screen is not an event model. There's no events here. It may be a model that augments the event model to give it context, right? But it's not an event model.
I'm not actually finished yet with this, right? Because I was going to introduce those.
Okay, so sure. Okay, maybe you are. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like there's a level of abstraction you're trying to say, and what are you trying to get from this level of abstraction? Is this one you're trying to get strategic?
How hard is it to make something like this?
Paid Lightning. So you've thrown an event on there, and then you have this box that says enterprise blockchain integration.
Well, I may not. I may have
so you have to choose what you want to model. You can't put everything.
No. That's the point. Is that I can represent that with this. So that was my next thing. The reason I used, so Rick, the reason that I put these as blocks saying this digital currency and whatever is because that I started by comparing it to Wordly maps. And that's what appears in these things. So how do we go here? And that's the next step, is that you don't leave it as just, well, I'm just going to put the same things that go on to the Wordly map as something we want to discuss. And this is why I go back to that argument of saying we need to keep the boardroom decisions accountable. So when I say paid with Lightning address, so paid in crypto, I know that this payment happened as a custom, part of a custom build, part of a product, or it's already been done and it's on something that's ubiquitous and a commodity. So that's why this actually, when you expand it, if you zoom in and it pops into this other view that we have, the regular view, this actually is an event on your real event model with the right data. And if you can take it to the level of having information correctness, that's even better, right?
Sure.
Information completeness.
But
That's Chris
do
Condren.
we put every crypto event on this model here?
No, not every. Key
or do we
ones
put
that you want. You can flag them as being, this is the one that's the end of an important workflow, and it is an anchor to the higher level abstraction.
Now you're getting it. That's
no,
no.
You just didn't let me.
Okay,
you didn't let me finish my presentation. Yeah, you didn't let me finish the presentation.
Okay.
I just wanted some feedback so far as to whether this makes sense from what you have on a Wordly map to have it put onto a timeline, which gives a better representation to how we put these red lines on a Wordly map, how we want to move things, right? This just, I don't know when this is going to happen. I don't have any data points to put it in. We can build on this. That means it's the reason that we don't want to replace Wordly maps. We want to do better than Wordly maps, right? And we can do that by saying that I have, instead of saying, oh, just like a little circle up there. Sorry, my gain, I think, is a little bit too much. I'm getting too excited screaming at you guys. Okay, how's that? Better level? Okay, so yeah, this is another session of Adam yelling at people. So we can have everything that we want in here. So registered wallet address. This is literally telling you where your anchor points are in here. And this is why we can do better than Wordly maps. Because when you zoom in, you can keep your eye on the things that are happening here. And yes, the executives don't want to see every bloody step because they won't be able to figure it out at all. Like what the heck's going on? There'll be too much information for them to swim through to actually make a strategic decision. Like just like you're planning in the army to attack something, you don't want to have to manage every single soldier, an icon for every single soldier. You have a battalion, or you have a anchor for who the lead for that regiment is, or whatever, or key pieces of equipment like a air carrier or something. If you look at the whole thing about the Wordly maps was having this Sun Tzu thing about war and blah blah blah, and these maps in the war room where you can slide around little figurines and talk about where the ridges are, where we have a advantage of elevation, where there's cutoff points for whatever. He uses those cutoff points in his works as well. Well, what's better than actually playing out of the story that you want to see, and playing out a story that happened, documenting it, making some projections that we're stuck in between these two things. Our core play is to be an instrumental movement here, but when it comes to how, you better answer it to the people that are working for you. Don't just make some stupid arbitrary decision and go on that old adage of like, just doesn't have to be the correct decision, just make a decision. Well, that's a silly level to leave it at. Why don't you make a decision and back it up with how it's going to work? It's not too hard, right? We have the means to do that. So yes, how do we make this more valuable than Wordly maps, yet involve the same amount of work? We add those anchor events. and
Is that what you call it, then?
they will be ones that you can see as you zoom in. They will be actual ones that will be in the details. You may have some other things that you might want to hide in terms of IDs and other things that might not be as nice to look at for executives. That's to be determined. I don't know. Maybe it's better to decorate those things with something with a separate event that's not present here. And it's important to have these key ones never get polluted with extra information, and we can use the decorator event kind of pattern that we were talking about. So yeah, sorry, someone was trying to say something.
Yeah, well, I was trying to get you to name them, because like you've got like your normal events, there's domain events between bounded context, right? This is going up higher, higher, higher. You're now talking about like some kind of strategic event for at an organization level, right? Once we get to this point, we're enabling some key capability, and that
Yep.
is reason why we're doing this entire work stream, and we can do, you know, cost of delay between these different events if you wanted, right? There's like
Yep.
there's a chain of reasoning around this.
Mm-hmm.
No offense, but anchor events might tell us what they are, but it's not the kind of name you need for this, right?
I don't need a name really. I want this to be self-evident. I'd rather not introduce more names. As you know, I'm after simplicity all the time. So I don't want to talk about, you know, I catch myself too. Oh, decorator event. It's like, crap. No, just leave information that's not important out of this event and put it in another one is what I should have said. I don't want to introduce yet another pattern. I'm anti-pattern in a different meaning.
Yeah, because like
I'm against patterns. I'm not an anti-pattern, but I'm against patterns. So yes, sorry, John, I'm talking over you.
No, it's cool, and I'm just kind of like trying to get this. So like you're saying that the level of context should tell you what the events are, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, there's the other thought I have, and then I'm going to shut up for a bit and listen to you.
No, go ahead. This is a meetup, so we can all talk and discuss this. You're here to participate and be part of what we're doing and creating here. I don't, you know, it's not just me sitting at this every day. It's a whole community of people trying it and you know, using it for better or worse, and actually using it to build their businesses and you know, succeed or fail with it. So you have a voice in this.
Got it, right. So my thought is this: the information completeness model, right? If you've got your event flows underneath this, and then I still have in my head that this is an extra dimension coming up, which tells you what sequence you're going to do your various streams in, right? You now have like two temporal maps, right? You've got your value stream, you've got your roadmap coming out of that. If you get to the point with this, I've forgotten the name of it, I'm afraid, the event mapping software you had.
ONote.
ONote, I think it was, right? If you take it to this level, then you can start figuring out like there's almost like a sequence required of implementation sometimes, right?
No. I'll tell you why not. I believe that the event models have very strong contracts, and so we end up doing this ourselves. Is we end up having a lot of screens mocked to get to a specific spot, and we have some short-circuiting slices of workflow that help make a V1 work, but that little slice gets thrown away when we get into a V2 of the same thing. So we don't want to have, because there are dependencies, it shows traceability, but it doesn't show what needs to be built first necessarily, unless it's required.
Can I disagree in here, right? Because you're at this level and you have the event at this board level, they don't want that event implemented with the bits before it mocked out. They actually care from an organizational level that there's a customer value stream happening at this point, right? Whilst you're implementing this, by all means, you could mock it and have like that event coming out with a bit of the system subbed out. But like on this abstraction, that event's not there until everything's in place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I would want that event to be there. It might be, you know, it might be one of those things where we really need some guidance as to, you know, people actually going with this in real life and saying it really paid off to focus on the vertical slices that actually included the anchor sort of events that we used at this level, because we said, you know, we need something to coordinate with at this strategic level. We can introduce new ones or just talk about, what's in them or what other topics we may have. But what we want here is are those things to be kind of at the top of mind for people that are implementing it. In other words, that they're working from the end goal, and those end goals were communicated in the boardroom. So let me see, transfer. I can't type. There. Better? Now we have nothing but real events. So we can have other placeholders here where obviously, we can have events out here too. Why not just have events out here as well as examples instead of this? I mean, my initial mistake was just to copy, well, not mistake, it's not a mistake. I really just wanted to show that there is a place for the dots on the Wordley map to live on here with better timeline understanding. But perhaps these things such as transfers, so transferred, paid, transfer, paid, that kind of stuff is an emailed, those are all things that that are actual events. And we could have something that shows how, online payments were really bad at first. Maybe there's something that they didn't ask for, like maybe, those three digits on the back of your credit card weren't around back then, right? So maybe that's what we show that was missing. And we can talk about that in terms of the evolution of how credit card payments online evolved when we're, having our strategy meeting at the boardroom. And I see, John, what you're talking about in terms of the different view, because when I'm in here, I can have, if I zoom in and I talk about this thing, I have certain pieces that I say I'm going to implement, right? And I think what we're getting to is that some of these, these three events probably would be, it's almost a non-negotiable that these must be implemented within the next couple of weeks to show that this whole thing holds water, and that it plays with the information completeness of anything else that we event model as we're designing the information system. And, that check for information completeness should, if there's a problem with what was marked here or some information needs to be added here, that goes up to in an email to the board saying that you are missing, a key piece of information and this paid in crypto receipt. That should be one of the first things that happens. That's why these events need to be slated to be either event modeled or implemented right away.
So, Adam, can I?
Yes.
Maybe I was looking for a way to try and explain what I'm saying with the visual picture. So, do you mind if I share my screen for a sec?
No, go for it. Let me just stop mine here, and I hope you're.